As you know, after a prolonged, years-long legal battle, the mayor recently reached a proposed settlement with the Houston Professional Firefighters Association. This settlement marks a significant milestone, potentially bringing an end to years of costly legal battles and enabling our dedicated firefighters to receive fair and competitive compensation for their invaluable services to our city. As we recognize this positive step, we must also acknowledge the financial challenges that lie ahead. My commitment as Houston's financial watchdog is to promote transparency about city finances, increase public understanding of how your tax dollars are being spent, and drive efficiency and effectiveness in city government so that we can invest more in you, in your family, and across our community. Opportunities like this to have an open dialogue about our city's finances are crucial for delivering on that commitment to Houstonians. With the city already facing a substantial budget shortfall, the implications of this settlement, which designates $650 million in back pay for firefighters, underscore the complexities of balancing fair compensation for city workers with taxpayer affordability. Before the settlement, the city already had an existing structural deficit of $160 to $200 million. This means that on an annual basis, our recurring expenses are hundreds of millions of dollars more than the recurring revenue that we expect to bring in. That's a problem that we have to solve. And there's no way around it. Just like each of us works to balance our checkbook at home, you can't repeatedly spend more than you're bringing in without facing the consequences. Even if you temporarily put everything on a credit card, that bill is going to come due, and at some point, you have to pay it. Having a savings account helps, and the city has one. At the end of this year, my office projects that our fund balance will be upwards of $400 million, and this buys us about a year of time to get our financial house in order. Our savings will be gone certainly in less than 2 years if we maintain projected spending without solutions to bring in more revenue. And again, all of this is before we factor in the proposed firefighter settlement. If we move forward, then a judgment bond will likely need to be issued to cover a lump sum payment for firefighter back pay. Like a mortgage on your home, that bond will be paid out over a stretch of 25 to 30 years. And a $650 million bond will, in the long run, cost the city $1.1 to $1.3 billion when you factor in interest payments. And the annual cost of those payments will be upwards of $40 million. So that's back pay. Now, when we factor in the raises going forward, we're talking about an additional $36 million in year one, and that figure could exceed $140 million by the final year of this proposed contract. So let's do the math on all that. We have an existing structural deficit of $160 to $200 million. Tack on roughly $70 to $80 million in additional costs next year to pay for the first year of the new contract and the first year of payments on the judgment bond. So now we're $230 to $280 million in the red on an annual basis. Now that's before we negotiate a new contract with city workers that's coming up in a few months' time, and a new contract with police that's coming up next year. These are significant numbers. And going back to our example of balancing your checkbook at home, it's plain and simple. There are only two ways to address this issue. You either increase revenue or you decrease costs. And I'll touch on this more in a moment. In this moment, I want to be very clear. Right now, I'm not weighing in on the fairness of the proposed settlement or on the new contract. First responders put their lives on the line to keep us safe. They deserve to be paid fairly, and they deserve the dignity that comes with knowing that the city values them and the sacrifices that they make to serve Houstonians. This is personal to me. Those of you who know me know that my dad and uncle served this community as HPD police officers. And you also know that both of my sisters are married to HFD firefighters. Firefighters who have dealt with years of financial insecurity, but who kept showing up to work to serve this city. Having family members who put their lives on the line to serve this community and to keep us safe puts a real personal perspective on the importance of their work. Beyond that, all city workers do an important job, and we must pay them competitively with the market if we want to recruit and retain top talent. I understand that, and each of you should understand that too. My job is to ensure that at the end of the day, our tax dollars are safe, and we as a city are on a path to fiscal sustainability. Given the budget shortfall that we're already facing, any deal that comes across my desk has to be looked at from the perspective of how the city will pay for it, including its impact on the pre-existing budget shortfall. And so, as we navigate the impact of this agreement on our city's finances, we have to prioritize financial responsibility, transparency, and collaboration in this process. That includes explaining to Houstonians how we plan to pay for this obligation so that we can safeguard the financial future of the city and reduce the risk to essential services that residents depend on and that impact our quality of life. We're engaging with all stakeholders, the mayor's office, city council, the firefighters union and other labor groups, business community, civic organizations, and the public to develop thorough and thoughtful strategies that protect the city's financial health while preserving critical city services for the people of Houston. I want to emphasize that the services the city provides are not luxuries. They're services that we can't live without. We need to be safe in our communities. We need access to clean water to drink in our homes. We need our trash picked up, and we need our roads and sidewalks to be safe to walk, bike, and drive on. These are fundamental necessities that residents expect, depend on, and pay for with their tax dollars. And so even as we think about ways that we can be more efficient in providing these services in order to safeguard our financial future, large-scale cuts and layoffs will not get the job done. That means we have to take a hard look at revenue options, in addition to diligently searching for ways we can operate more efficiently. We were elected with a mandate to not only maintain, but to improve the quality of critical city services, and in doing so, to improve the quality of life for the people of Houston. And we must uphold that responsibility. My office is committed to working with the mayor, city council, and all community stakeholders to identify practical solutions that that consider the needs of our city today, tomorrow, and for years to come. And I'm personally committed to fulfilling our obligations with integrity and accountability as we navigate the challenges ahead transparently and with a sense of collective responsibility. Thank you. Now I'm happy to answer a few questions.
We'll go to with KG11 here. What are the options your office is considering when it comes to collaborating with the city in terms of how taxpayers might be paying for this?
Sure. So to clarify and make sure I understand your question, you're talking about cost savings opportunities?
Yes, exactly.
Sure. So we're already engaged in a working group with the mayor's finance team, and that's turning over every stone to look at opportunities for our city to cut costs, to operate more efficiently. A significant aspect that is the PFM report that comes up more and more often these days that gave us dozens of options that might save $1 million here or $5 million there. But if you think about our current financial situation with a hole of $160 to $200 million, which is going to balloon to well upwards of $200 million and closer to $300 million soon, those one-off opportunities are not going to get the job done. And so we have to look at revenue at the same time. Yes.
So kind of related, the mayor's team has proposed adjusting the revenue cap and potentially implement a garbage fee. Do you agree that these two measures are absolutely necessary for us to consider right now?
There's certainly things that we should consider. The garbage fee is something that the city of Houston is unique in that we are the only major city in the state of Texas that doesn't have a garbage fee. And so look, I'm always someone who wants to look to how other cities have tackled some of these challenges. And what seems to be a solid practice across the state of Texas is that cities have a garbage fee that helps to pay for this incredible and necessary service. In addition, you talked about lifting the revenue cap. Now, two things. Number one, I'm on record publicly saying that we should have eliminated the revenue cap a long time ago. And even if we were not to eliminate it in its entirety, we should have a public safety exception so that we can pay our police officers and our firefighters without sacrificing the level of services across this community. That having been said, there's no option this fall to lift the revenue cap. We just had votes on charter amendments this past year, and the next time that we can do that by law is in the fall of 2026. And so while we might message to the public that this is about public safety, we can't specifically pursue a public safety exception to the revenue cap by charter at this moment. What we'll have to do is simply explain to voters, here are what these services cost, and here's what, here's the bill that we want to send you to pay for it, and make sure that we're making a convincing argument to them that that's fair. Now, to do that, we have to demonstrate that we're being a good steward of the resources that they're already investing in the city of Houston. And part of my job is to make sure that we're being transparent, sharing information about city finances to make clear that we're being a good steward, and also auditing the city so that we can find more opportunities to be efficient, to crack down on waste, fraud, and abuse, and to better deliver in a way that the Houstonians deserve. Yes.
You said you weren't going to weigh in right now on the fairness of this proposed settlement. Is that something you plan to do in the future? Because it's pretty hard to tell from the outside, just whether this is a good deal.
Listen, we're waiting to understand some of these details in the same way that you are. The inner workings of the negotiation obviously are quite sensitive. We haven't been briefed on so many of those details. We have the high level numbers. That's what we're sharing, and we're offering our perspective on that right now. What's clear is that some sort of settlement needs to be reached, right? Whether 650 million is the right number, that came down to the folks who were in the room. Obviously, the firefighters feel that it's fair to them. They voted overwhelmingly to support this as a union. We have to look at the numbers of what the city was at risk of losing if we were to proceed in litigation or arbitration, and we haven't been exposed to those figures just yet. As we move forward, now that's pretty easy to get a hold on. Are our firefighters being paid at similar rates to Austin, to Fort Worth, to Dallas, to San Antonio? We're waiting for those figures too, but I think it'll be pretty easy to suss out from anyone's perspective if those numbers are fair once we get a hold of them.
Was the city communicating with your office while they were doing these negotiations?
No.
What led to the budget shortfall, and what's your message to taxpayers who will be footing the bill potentially for this settlement?
This is a long-standing pattern, right? The city for years and years has been spending on a recurring basis more than it's brought in on a recurring basis. Now, how has it plugged those holes in the past? Now, certainly dollars that we received from the federal government for COVID were a big chunk of that. But previous to that, we had money that came in for other disasters, and there were other one-time solutions, such as selling a piece of property to plug a hole in that budget. This is something that cities across the nation have faced, but at some point you have to face the music, right? Again, you start to look at the numbers and they pile up, and it's my job to at some point say, hey, we can no longer foot this bill. And so that's what we'll continue to do to make sure that the mayor and city council are aware of the financial situation that we're facing. And just as importantly, to make sure that the people of Houston understand what's going on downtown and have the opportunity to weigh in and hold their leaders accountable.
I understand that all of this is still in the works and you're still getting the numbers and the payment plans. But have you made any kind of decision on whether ultimately you will be approving this? Like, is there any chance that you will, at the end, not approve whatever deal is passed by the city council and approved by the judge and all of that?
So ultimately, my job will come down to certifying the availability of funds. That says we have the money to pay this bill. As I've laid out here, because of our historic fund balance, we will be able to pay the bill in the near term. The question is, will we be able to pay it over the longer term? And that's where some of these tough choices have to come in. Again, we have to either dramatically decrease cost, dramatically increase revenue, or some combination of the two. And from my look, there are certainly opportunities for our city to operate more efficiently, but we're not going to get there with cost cuts alone.
So what you're saying basically, sorry, just so I make sure that I understand. So as long as the plan that does move forward has a long-term type option, then that would be something that your office would approve?
We'll have to wait till we see it in its final form, but from what I understand, with the historic fund balance that we have and with the near-term cost of this deal, we will certainly be able to afford it in year one.
Do you think it was fiscally responsible for the city to also reach a 5-year prospective contract with firefighters at the same time as this back pay agreement?
Again, I'm not weighing in on the fairness or equity of this deal. Ultimately, we need to make sure that firefighters are being paid fairly. Once I see the numbers of how this deal compares to what's happening in other major cities across the state of Texas, so that we can make sure that we're attracting talent to come serve in this critical role for Houstonians, that will be my assessment of fairness.
You referenced the PFM report. Are there any specific recommendations, anything the city should prioritize exploring from that report?
We're still digging into the details of those. Ultimately, it comes down to which of these options save us the most money, and which are the easiest, frankly, to execute and to implement, right? And so we're in the process of going through them with a fine-tooth comb, one by one, to understand the intricacies, how hard they would be or easy to implement, and what we would get out of it, what's the bang for our buck. And then we'll pursue them we'll recommend that they be pursued according to those priorities.
What's the timeline to have this approved from your office? Is there a timeline? Just
No timeline has been laid out. We understand the intention is to get to the finish line ahead of the new fiscal year, which obviously is, this one wraps up June 30th and the next one begins on July 1. But we also know that there are a number of steps in this process. We have what sounds like approval from the union. The judge has to approve it. The attorney general has to approve it. City council has to approve it. And so we're not going to lay out their timeline for them. When it comes to us, we'll take our turn.
Any other questions?
All right. Thanks so much.